Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name is Ross, and as always told, I had a voice radio, and I've always been a big fan of Halloween. So today, we are starting our run-up to Halloween by looking at a very fun new Halloween-centered deck that we could be playing in the very near future when Crimson Invasion comes out on Friday. And yes, I am aware that Halloween is Tuesday and Crimson Invasion comes out on Friday, but Halloween! I'm cool with it if you are. My plan is to do at least one Halloween video from now until Halloween, one a day, so let me know in the comments if you guys want it and the views are good enough, we will keep doing it. We're going to be looking at Gourgeist from the upcoming Crimson Invasion set, and I like this because he evolves from Pumpkaboo. And there's two important things here. Firstly, it's literally just a pumpkin, and there are very few things more Halloween-y than a pumpkin. But secondly, Gourgeist evolves from Pumpkaboo, but for years now, for 3 years in fact, since Phantom Forces came out, Pumpkaboo has been taking the limelight. Pumpkaboo has been a really integral part of this Night March deck, along with Joltik and Lampant, and it's quite nice now that Gourgeist can maybe start stepping out of its younger cousin Shadow. And yes, I know that Night March is basically the most Halloween-y deck there is, what with Lampant and Pumpkaboo, but I don't know if we need another video on Night March. Of course, let me know in the comments if you think I'm wrong. Now, I've done a video about Gourgeist, there is a link in the description, but as a quick reminder, it's a psychic Pokemon, 120 HP, retreat cost of 3 is heavy, but you can use Heavy Ball, and the resistance to fighting is always good, especially with Buzzwole potentially looking quite good when Crimson Invasion drops. And the weakness to Dark is great, because we would expect it to generally be weak to Psychic, which is an issue with Garbodor. Although you'll see as we go through that we're using so many items in this deck that it doesn't really matter if you're weak to Garbodor. The theory here is quite simple. It's generally a non-GX deck. You're giving up one prize per Pokemon, so like we see with decks like Persimmon, we're just going to use a whole bunch of items, and we're not going to worry about it. We're going to accept that Garbodor's one-hit KOing us. So, first attack here, Confuse Ray. It is literally Espeon GX's Confuse Ray. Oh no, wait, it doesn't do any damage. One Psychic Energy Confusion doesn't do any damage. In a pinch, maybe we don't like it. No, the attack we like is Pumpkin Bomb. 10 damage, but before doing damage, you may discard any number of Pokemon tools from your Pokemon. This attack does 40 more damage for each Pokemon tool you discard. So I suppose what we need to do first is just get the maths on the screen. Here we go. 50 for one tool, 90 for two, 130 for three, 170 for four, 210 for five, 250 for six. Because with Skyfield now rotated, the maximum number of Pokemon you can have out is 6. Therefore, the maximum number of tools you can be discarding is 6. Now, some of you might be thinking, hang on a second, Ross. Wasn't there an ancient trait, Fate or Double, that allowed you to have 2 tools on a Pokemon? Yes. Yes, there was. It was present on the following Pokemon. Vespiquen from Ancient Origins, which is rotated. Entei from Ancient Origins, which is rotated. Gyarados from Ancient Origins, which is rotated, Metagross from Ancient Origins, which is a Stage 2, and has rotated, and Mega Tyranitar EX, which is a Mega Pokemon, an EX, and has rotated. Nope, we're stuck doing 1 tool per Pokemon at the moment. Now, to be fair, 250 is great. You're basically one-hit KOing anything other than Solgaleo and Metagross because they have a resistance to Psychic. So even though you're doing 250, which is how much HP they have, the resistance will save them. You also here cannot do the extra damage with Choice Band, because if we look at the wording of Gourgeist, it says before doing damage, you may discard any number of Pokemon tool cards. Which means if you discard the Choice Band on Gourgeist, you discard it before doing the extra damage, which means you're doing 40 by discarding it rather than 30 by leaving it on. So you can be doing 240 if you don't discard the Choice Band attached to Gourgeist, 250 if you do. Glad we got that cleared up. So a very powerful attack, one that will one-hit KO most Pokemon if you get enough tools on the field. So let's talk about these tools for a minute. I don't know how many you're going to be playing, but the thing is, you're playing a Stage 1 Gourgeist. The best partner, as we're going to talk about in a minute, is Garbodor, that's also a Stage 1. So really, you're probably talking 8 to 12, which means you're going to be having a very thin deck at this stage. You're going to really be fighting for that deck space, which is a bit of an issue. We don't have Eco Arm anymore, so the only way we can really recover these is with Puzzle of Time, which is a little bit awkward, if I'm perfectly honest with you, because you're just swapping 2 Puzzle of Time for 2 tools. You might as well just play a couple more tools, make things a little bit easier. And really here, this is a bit of an issue because you're not going to have enough tools to just be smashing Pokemon after Pokemon. Now, hopefully, you can get a couple of Pokemon in the early game where you just get to sit there and do 90 damage on a Curlier with just discarding 2 tools, maybe getting rid of an Alolan Vulpix, discarding 2 tools, etc. Then you can start taking a whole bunch of prizes. But sooner or later, ladies and gentlemen, you are going to run out of tools. I think Gourgeist is absolutely legit as an early game Pokemon. But in the mid to late game, you're going to need somebody else. We'll talk about them in a minute. As a side note, what tools do we have here? I mean, it's been this way for a while, but there are 2 Pokemon tools that really jump above all others in terms of how great they are. Floatstone, which gives all of your Pokemon free retreat when it's attached to said Pokemon. And Choice Band, which does 30 more to EXs or GXs. Now, I know that Choice Band is not going to do extra damage if you discard it with Gourgeist, but you might not be discarding it, and that's the key here. If you cannot discard it, then you can sit there doing a whole bunch of damage, keeping the Choice Band, or maybe you save a Choice Band for the mid to late game when you're attacking with Garbodor. The other options we've got here are Muscle Dumbbells, which is actually quite cool, because this is a predominantly Stage 1 deck. So you just get to give all of your Stage 1 Pokemon an extra 40 HP. That is quite handy. I keep saying Muscle Dumbbells because that was a Japanese name, which I really enjoyed. It is, of course, called Bodybuilding Dumbbells when it's translated into English. Nice to have a little bit of extra bulk, and yeah, your opponent can use Field Blower to get rid of Bodybuilding Dumbbells. That's a slight issue. The other thing is, of course, if you've got more than 120 damage on you, then you discard Bodybuilding Dumbbells to do the extra damage. You will then KO yourself because you'll have 120 HP and more than 120 damage. But it's nice to have it anyway. You're not going to be using many of these tools for their intended purpose anyway, but it's nice to have them for if you do need to use them for their intended purpose. If you're going to be using any basic Pokemon, might I suggest Fighting Fury Bout? Same theory as Muscle Dumbbells, except you also get to do an extra 10 damage. Yay! So, I think Gourgeist can be a good early to mid-game Pokemon, but you are going to run out of tools, and when you run out of tools, he's not a great attacker. Now, it's not the most Halloween-y of examples, I'm afraid, but how about Garbodor? It's still a Psychic-type Pokemon, a Poison-type in the game, so it's kind of evil, and it's literally trash, which you get a lot of after Halloween, and it's hardly the nicest thing ever. So I'm counting it, and there's a couple of reasons why Garbodor makes sense here. Number 1, Garbotoxin on the Breakpoint Garbodor is activated when you pop a tool onto Garbodor. Well, this is brilliant. You need tools for Garbodor. You're playing tools for Gourgeist. Match made in heaven. And there are certain decks where you can be turning off your opponent's abilities that will really help. Something like a Volcanion deck, for instance, or a Greninja deck. The thing you need to remember, of course, is that if you discard that tool using Gourgeist, you then turn on abilities, which could be good. You might want abilities next turn, but you're turning on tools for your opponent. And then you've got the other Garbodor, and this works beautifully here as well. Trash a Latch for 1 Psychic Energy does 20 damage for each item card in your opponent's discard pile. And what you do is you put on early pressure with Gourgeist, taking some early prizes. Your opponent goes, no, I'm going down by multiple prizes. I need to fix this. So what do? they play slightly faster because they need to get set up, which means they play more item cards, which means Garbodor becomes a lot better. And then by the time you've run out of tools, your opponent should have enough items in their discard pile that Garbodor can come in and do a whole bunch of damage. Yay! It works quite nicely. Now there are some other options we've got here. You could use Octillery or Oranguru. You need to draw stuff, you need to grab some tools. These are quite cool, although they're not great attackers. Do remember that Garbodor will turn them off. Zoroark GX works nicely here. You've got the trade ability, which means you're going to be able to draw stuff more nicely. Plus you're playing double colourless energy anyway, and it's got a lot more HP. But it is a GX Pokemon, which does go against the whole non-GX deck giving up one prize when your opponent takes a KO kind of theory. But it is a good attacker, it does work for a double colourless, it has got a great ability, although it's not taking one-hit KOs very often. Or maybe you want to go with some basic Pokemon. Save a bit of space for more tools. Maybe something like Drampa GX, whose Berserk attack could be really good here. Though, like I said, with Zoroark, you are giving up 2 prizes, so you do then turn yourself into less of a non-GX deck. How about Rayquaza? Attacks for a double colourless energy, which we like. It's got decent attacks, especially when you add a choice band, which we like. Accelerates energy onto stuff like Gourgeist, which we like, and it's a basic Pokemon which saves a bit of space in your deck. Could be fun. Use Rayquaza while you build up some tools on your Pokemon. There's a whole bunch of options, ladies and gentlemen, but as we're coming up to Halloween, I thought it would be fun just to show you a deck which revolves around one of the Halloweeniest Pokemon we've got in Gourgeist. I don't think he's great enough to play the whole game just with him, but as a start, to take the first few prizes while you hand off to somebody else, I think Gourgeist could be good. And I'm sorry if you've heard this in too many other decks, but I think the best partner here really is Garbodor. Space could be tight, and you've got to fit all your tools in, but early game smashing with Gourgeist, I like. Late game smashing with Garbodor could work. And of course, you get to turn off abilities. That's always fun. But ladies and gentlemen, I want to know what you think. Let me know in the comments. Do you think this could be a good deck? And are there any other Halloween decks you would like me to be having a look at between now and Halloween? Let me know if I like your idea. I just might take it on. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassy, and Twitch at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. That's where the live action happens. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts, etc. A new one just went up this weekend. Then you can do so at patreon.com/PTCGRadio. But by far the most important thing, as always, is to look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.